Just because something seems super saturated doesn't mean you can't still weasel your way into the market if you have enough differentiation. But it takes a lot understanding of how are you going to differentiate.
Building a brand is not an easy task. What can go wrong if you don't do this? Hello and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Coffee Break podcast. Today we are looking at one of the biggest struggles in e-commerce, cutting through the noise and driving real growth. Too often sellers waste money on ads, launch without a plan, or hit a growth ceiling that they just can't break. Joining me today on the show is Noah Wickham. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at My Amazon Guy. He worked with more than 400 brands on Amazon, Walmart, and Shopify, helping them grow from small players into serious powerhouses. So we have a lot to cover today. Let's dive into it. Noah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Klaus.
Noah, many brands struggle to stand out in crowded marketplaces, and that's not easy. What's your take on that?
Especially in this day and age, it's much harder, I think, than it was, even like a decade ago online and to grow a brand in general. And so I think that just gets harder. You can look at things such as like Google search trends, right? And, how things just keep getting more and more competitive across the board from, both an SEO, but even more so an advertising perspective. I think a lot of brands in this day and age are in a pay to play market much more than they used to be, both on like Amazon and just direct to consumer. And so it's one of those big things where putting, product first and customer first, I think is really, really impactful for a majority of brands. So my philosophy just comes down to exactly that, be a brand first, customer first, brand for all products that you launch and everything that you are focusing on. And that's usually going to be the best indicator of success.
Mm-hmm. Now, building a brand is not an easy task. And as you mentioned, it makes sense to start early on. What can go wrong if you don't do this?
When you are starting a brand and at the very beginning, the biggest mistakes I tend to see people make is starting a brand for the sole purpose of just trying to get some money. They don't put any philosophy or anything into the products they are launching. They don't put any thought into the actual customer audience that they are targeting with their products. They're solely just in it for that. And if you just go into it with zero actual data, you go into it with zero thought process outside of I want to do this just because, you're going to have a really hard time, right? You're going to not know your customer base. You're not going to know how to target them. You're not going to know what they want. Your product might fit a certain need, quote unquote, that people have, but it's not a guarantee of success. And especially when you have so much competition in the space, you have to know who your customer is. You have to know who your audience segmentation is and what the need is that you're actually solving. What is that pain point that people have that they need solved?
Now, I totally agree. I have seen too many new sellers that trying to sell everything to anyone. And then at the end of the day, you're not selling anything at all because people do not know what you stand for. And value proposition, unique selling proposition is so important, but it's also difficult to achieve, to find out, okay, what do I stand for? Now, on big marketplaces, being found on these places, standing out on these places as a brand might be easier. But how does it work? How do you get there?
Yeah, I think the very first thing, obviously, what I talked about earlier, we're in a very pay to play market, right? And so that's not to say you can't start a brand without any advertising budget. You're just going to be at a severe disadvantage compared to the hundreds of other people that are starting with an ads budget, right? And so understanding the customer landscape, obviously, first and foremost, but secondarily to that, understanding your competitor landscape, right? There's a big difference in launching a brand as a supplement selling creatine, right? Versus someone who is selling a very unique fish tank or bird cage, right? Where the niche, yes, is much smaller, but the competitive landscape is also significantly smaller. And so understanding, yes, both the need that you are trying to solve for customers, but then simultaneously understanding what are the competitors doing in this landscape. Are you going to be going in and selling a product for half the price of all of your competitors, double the price of most of your competitors, so on and so forth? And so getting in very early and kind of starting that and making sure you know what your competitive landscape looks like so you can plan around that competitive landscape is super crucial. You can't just roll out in this day and age a white label product that is the same as 100 other products out there for double the price and just throw money at ads and hope that you do well, right? Like, yeah, you used to be able to do that. You can't now, right? And it's one of those things where it's just we are in a more saturated market. That's not to say in the slightest that's not a great time still to start a brand, because I think the best time to start a brand is now. The second, it is second best time to start tomorrow. And you're never going to get a better time to start than just the present, unfortunately. And so people are looking at it now as a great time. And if you're currently have one and you're struggling with scaling, it really does just come down to that, is that differentiation within the competitive landscape. I mean, what makes, Apple do so well when their phones, people constantly rave and talk about how their phones have half the features of that of the current Google phone or Samsung phone, right? And meanwhile, Apple is just a behemoth of $1 trillion company still. Why? And it's because they know exactly who they're selling to. They understand the competitive landscape and they target specifically who they're trying to sell to.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you have a huge experience with 400 brands. You have seen probably tons of product launches. Amazon is one of the platforms you're very good on. For our listeners that are just getting started or that have started and it failed, I think that happens quite often because Amazon is a beast on its own. It's a universe. It's not like Shopify. You need to really know your way around there. What's your approach, let's say, from research, competitor research, and then finding the outcome and then slowly going into a product launch? Let's start with the research. What's your approach there?
Yeah, I think from a research standpoint, my approach typically is going to be kind of the same across the board. And that is obviously one, competitor research into the actual category. So understanding from both a parent level category all the way down to your very specific sub category niche. What is that competitive landscape, right? I see people where they're like, oh, I want to sell a health and fitness product because they have, $150 million a month, revenue cap or something like that, right? It's like, oh, cool. But then they end up being like, I'm going to sell these toe supports, which has a $20,000 a month, total cap on the market. And so understanding if there is room within the market for you is very important within that initial research phase. Understanding the different brands, a great one is I always like looking at the research reports of like the year after from companies like Smart Scout, Jungle Scout, things like that. And you'll see like last year in 2024, the worst category anyone could possibly enter in 2024 was luggage. And it's because one brand, Samsonite, controlled 30% of the entire market for luggage sales on Amazon in 2024. And that's like more than any other category, right? And so it's like, and yet I know a brand that launched luggage January 2025, and they have now gotten past $100,000 a month in sales, right? And, that's only 9 months later. And so just because something seems super saturated doesn't mean you can't still weasel your way into the market if you have enough differentiation, but it takes a lot understanding of how are you going to differentiate, right? So for instance, that luggage brand, they differentiated because they noticed that the market on Amazon didn't have any like super high end luxury luggage, right? Most of the luggage that was competing for all of that market share was between $100 and $300. They're like, screw that. We're going to build these super complex bags that are $1,000, right? And there was only 2 competitors now who they are truly competing with within that space and for market share comparatively to this giant swath of a market. So getting really niche can both be really hard on a brand, but also really lucrative if you know how to position yourself.
I love this example because just copying something one-to-one, what somebody else does, probably chances that you will succeed with that, specifically if it's a bigger brand, is like 0. But taking something and looking at it from every angle and see where can I make it better or where can I find a smaller niche to sell it is a good approach. Now, once you have your product and you want to go into a launch, and I know there's a lot of work involved before you actually really can go live on Amazon and go out to the public. What are the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, the next steps would be essentially doing things such as like keyword research, making sure you're actually doing keyword research for the products that you're going to be selling, ensuring that you have good design work, right? So click through rate is a huge factor of Amazon, as well as, your conversion rate. Both of those are very design heavy aspects of the platform. And so that's one of those things where I would always encourage people to focus very heavily, very early on, keyword research for both your organic SEO and for your advertising, and then secondarily your designs. Right? I've seen people just have a great, great, great product, do all this research, and then they flop on their launch because they, post basically the manufacturer photos of their product, right? And nobody is going to click on that. Nobody's going to buy that, and I have a constant saying of pictures are for the people, text is for the robots, right? And so,
Okay.
really, really early on, focus on that keyword research to really just hone in on the algorithm, hone in on your advertising, but do not skimp out on, your imagery, your design work, because that is what people actually care about.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I mean, sometimes you see these factory photos from China with like Chinese characters in there, and you just wonder what's happening there.
It's like, why?
Now, obviously, there's some limitations when you have a product detail page on Shopify, on Amazon compared to Shopify. And you already said there's text, might be for the bots, pictures. Is there kind of a hierarchy that you would approach that? And what's the most important to really stand out?
Yeah, I mean, so like your main image is probably like one of the number one most important things on Amazon, right? Because when people are searching on Amazon, that's like the primary thing they see is your main image, right? And secondarily to that, your title. And more importantly, the first 5 keywords in your title. Those are kind of like your, I guess, showstoppers, so to speak, where it will get people to stop scrolling real quick, click on your product, and then look through your products. And when you think about it, it's a little bit like a landing page, right? For Shopify, where on Shopify, you really want to optimize essentially for getting people, clicked in really quickly based off of just a really quick header on that and essentially a really quick grab their attention. Imagery on Shopify doesn't have to be as, I guess the best way to put it would be influential, right? In the sense that you don't have to try and influence people through the imagery outside of it just being really, really nice design work. Whereas on Amazon, you're providing all information on the product by those product images, right? Secondarily, that you get things such as your A+ content, but realistically, that main image and that first 5 of that title are like your scroll stoppers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Once you have your product detail page up and running, everything is set to go, and you're going into the launch. There's different ways. I mean, probably you cannot expect that traffic will come on automatically. There will most likely some competitors. What's the next step when it comes to paid marketing on the platform?
Yeah, I think advertising is the area that majority of sellers I talk to have the hardest time with, both from just a profitability standpoint and just a growth standpoint. And it's because it's such a competitive landscape, right? And so, really, really targeted keyword research and competitor research is pinnacle to successful advertising campaigns. I typically also see a lot of people putting too much stock into things such as like sponsored brand, sponsored display way too early on. For reference, from like a industry average standpoint, we're seeing roughly 89 to 90% of all ad spend towards sponsored product campaigns. And so it's one of those that I am always going to encourage that, just especially early on, where you're setting up just an auto campaign to try and get some more keywords in. You're setting up broad campaigns because people so often target exact campaigns so frequently comparatively to broad, where broad is a great, great initial campaign to just understand new search terms for your product, understand potential new sales ability for your product. So broad in general is what I'm going to recommend very heavily, followed by exact. Whereas, at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of times where people are not spending, I think, enough early on enough. You need to make sure you actually have a budget You can't just be like, oh, here's $10 a day and hope you're going to do anything with that. Realistically, I usually recommend between a minimum of $50 and $100 a day, right? And secondarily to that, I want to see people constantly be updating. Advertising and PPC on Amazon, same as Google, it's the same as Meta. It is not a set and forget. And it's something that I see people do all too often. They'll set up an auto campaign or something, not touch it ever, and that's that, right? And it's like, yeah, of course your advertising isn't doing all that well. You're not optimizing for it. You're not trying to see what bid adjustment, if you can, get an extra 10 clicks off of just a, 1 cent bid increase, right? So there's a lot of areas of optimization opportunity within ads. It just comes down to doing that early and often, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have dabbled on Amazon seller accounts and all of this years ago. I've sold for online for 8 years, 9 years, something like that. Amazon was such a beast that I decided to outsource. And I think with the complexity of Amazon, it's a good idea to do so. How do you help your clients with getting up and running?
Yeah, so a variety of different ways. We work with different brands, everything from people who are just launching on the platform all the way up to people who are doing, just shy of 9 figures a year, right? And so every brand at the end of the day is going to be different in the exact strategy you have to use to tackle it, right? But there's some just like key things at the end of the day that every brand is going to need. We tend to look at kind of 4 pillars of holistic growth. First being advertising, second being design, third being SEO, fourth being catalog merchandising, right? Like those are the 4 pillars that no matter the size of the brand, you can kind of come back to those as like your top pillars for all of these granular different optimizations you can make. A lot of launch prep is going to be spent on understanding the market you are going into, understanding the keywords that your competitors are currently advertising against, understanding what your average cost per click is going to be, and optimizing very, very quickly for essentially getting as many sales in the door as early as possible. So one of the launch strategies that we push all the time is like this aspect of, if you can for roughly, let's say 8 weeks, be okay with not making a single cent of profit, you will likely be well attuned, because you'll sit there and you'll go, okay, we're going to launch at 50% of what we want our retail price to be. We're going to typically have 50% plus of our total, sales coming from ads and, be a part of ad spend. And we're just going to drive as many conversions super early on as possible. And the entire point of that comes down to one particular area, right? The aspect that we need to just get in the algorithm and get well ranked and get within Amazon's eyesight, so that people can start to organically start coming through, very early. Because the quicker you can start getting just organic traffic that just builds on itself, the better.
Mm-hmm. I think you just gave away a golden nugget here, a hack for our listeners to try that out. And I think it makes totally sense to help the algorithm just to find you. Now, if somebody has started and they run, either the launch does not really work, they run into trouble, what's normally the point when people approach you? Are they really coming from the start, or are they only coming to you when things do not go well?
It's a mix, right? I mean, the biggest thing is that people need help in so many different ways, right? And so we get people who are just launching, and we get people who are like, I'm, losing sales, right? We're down 50% year over year, month over month, right? And we have no idea what's going on. Please help us, right? Oh, our previous agency screwed this up, and we need help figuring out how to, solve this and grow our sales back to where we are. Like, all sorts of different things. Most common ones being, like I said, stagnation of sales, profitability is low, sales are declining, advertising is too expensive. Those are like the common things I hear every single day from sellers, right? And it's exactly what we kind of base our entire idea of strategy around, right? Is how do we solve for keeping people profitable while growing sales, and reducing overall ad spend. And that just comes down to, again, some of the core things: increasing our overall click-through rate, increasing our conversion rate, right? When you bump all of these major issues in a business down to just granular, like, this is the one data point that we can see that will, gradually affect everything else, it makes developing the strategy around that a lot easier. So hone in and focus on your click-through rate. Oh, you only have a 1% click-through rate. On average, we're seeing across this category, you should be at 2.5 or 4, right? And so, okay, how can we develop a better main image to get a higher click-through rate? Are you targeting the correct keywords and organically showing on keywords they're super relevant to your product for that, right? These are the type of things that you hone in on one specific data point, and you just go after that data point to see it spread across all of the different aspects. Because think of it, higher click-through rate, more than likely, if you keep your regular conversion rate, you're going to have a sales increase, right? And if you do that from an organic sense where you're increasing your SEO organically, fantastic. Now your organic sales are higher. You're spending less on advertising. So everything kind of just rolls into itself at the end of the day.
I like the approach, what you just mentioned, to have someone on your side who actually can read the data. Because if you're sitting in front of the data, you said, I have a 1% conversion rate. Is that good or bad? If you don't know what you don't know. So if you have somebody in this industry, it should be 2 or 3%, then it already helps. Now, I'm a big fan of omnichannel. I think everyone should sell on every channel that is there to reach their clients. Amazon is particularly expensive. Are there specific products or, I don't know, industries where you would struggle to get them on high rankings or to make money basically on Amazon? Or is there literally everyone can go?
No, I think everyone can. It really just comes down to specific category, right? But it's also one of those things where, I hear that exact same thing. And it's why, last year we started launching direct consumer services, right? In the sense that we're even taking a lot of our Amazon sellers and being like, hey, you should be doing multi-channel approach. You should have a Shopify store. You should be diversifying your business. And, it's something we're really pushing on right now, just from the aspect of getting up to speed overall with like where the market's at, right? Amazon is going to continue growing, but they're also going to continue extending their reach and authority over people. And they're going to continue adding fees and making it harder to sell. And they're not going to stop, Chinese sellers or anything like that. And so, diversifying into things such as like Shopify is just like a no-brainer in our opinion. Doing email marketing and basically getting to control your own customer base. Like, those are things that we're encouraging pretty much every single seller to do, right? Just because it's this smart approach.
Yeah, I think you should really try to reach the customer where it is. And the big advantage of Amazon, obviously, people go with a buyer's intention to Amazon. So they're already more valuable for you as a brand than somebody who is just randomly browsing the interwebs. And
63% of all online purchases start with a search on Amazon. Fun fact.
Yeah. That shows how valuable Amazon is. Now, who's your perfect customer? What kind of brands do you work with?
Yeah, we work pretty much in every single category, which is nice, right? So we have tons and tons and tons of data points. Our largest categories by far are, health and beauty, supplements, but those are also the largest categories by whole, right? And so we kind of trend exactly like that in the sense of all the categories we work with. My perfect ideal customer, right, is somebody who understands the value of, investment into trying new strategies and growth, right? So trying to A/B test new things every single month and understands that and has that growth mentality, right? It's really, I love working with every client, right? But I especially love working with clients who like understand the aspect of like how business works and you have to invest to grow. Everyone wants a risk-free business opportunity. 99.99% of quote unquote risk-free opportunities are fluff and BS, in my opinion. And anybody who's ever had a really successful business would know that. As far as, like a sales revenue, right? Like I said, we work with everyone across the board, but I think like vast majority of our clients are doing somewhere in the ballpark of between, 250,000 to 2.5 million annually, right? And so That's going to be like, and that's, to be fair, a pretty large swath, but overall, that's going to be like, I would say 80% of our clients or so are within that kind of range right there.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're at that revenue point, you already should understand that you're running a real business and you should be willing and motivated to invest. Now,
be surprised.
What's a typical onboarding process for a new client?
Our onboarding process is actually super simple, primarily because we care about speed more than anything. We know that people are usually in pretty desperate times. They have some major thing they need solved. So we're as simple as a 24-hour turnaround. So on average, we get people in and onboarded in less than 24 hours. And the goal for that is exactly that. We want to get in and we just want to start solving problems immediately, right? So we talk, my favorite kind of person to talk to and work with is somebody who's like, yeah, I need this solved today. I'm like, cool, send them over some paperwork, get everything in, get access to their account, and boom, we're in their account working on it, that same day sometimes. And so I love doing things like that. And that's our goal at the end of the day. Be fast. Within the first 72 hours, we'll have usually full access to people's advertising on every account that we're doing work on, and have fully optimized it for what we want with some new keywords. Same thing, we'll have usually an entire plan already for designs and updates we're going to be doing, A/B tests and whatnot. And so we're pretty very regimented in how we do that. And that just comes again from working with so many brands as well and knowing exactly what it is people need more so. People can want things all day long, but it's really a need basis, and most people's wants align pretty closely with the actual need as well.
Mm-hmm. Talk me about your pricing structure. How do you charge for your services?
So we typically charge from a monthly retainer standpoint. The monthly retainer, there's about 3 things that go into costing, right, for us at the end of the day. And it usually just comes down to overall size of an account, right? So how much design does someone need? Are we doing a couple of products overhaul, or are we doing an entire catalog at the end of the day, right? Of 1,000 products, right? Like very different amounts of design needed. And that comes down to obviously just more of like a manpower thing. Like how many hours is it going to be associated? And then as well with that, just total, like I said, catalog size is the secondary aspect of that. So I usually find, for instance, like advertising, like, your ad budget, I don't really care what your ad budget is, because your ad budget usually, 1, goes hand in hand with the size of your catalog, and 2, how much revenue you're doing, right? And those 2 things will dictate how much time is necessary and how many people need to be involved in making certain decisions. And so we have all decisions on accounts roll up to a single person who's just, a brand manager, account manager. For both Amazon and our Walmart, direct to consumer, all of that. And so we want a single point of contact who can just be laser focused on directing the entire choir of 8 to 12 people. They're actually like optimizing an account.
I think it makes perfect sense. Every business is different. Every business has different SKUs, and then really looking into it. I think that's a good way forward. Noah, before our coffee break comes to an end today, anything you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think we kind of covered it all. I'm really glad to have gotten a chance to be on here, Klaus. Hoping we'll get a chance to chat again sometime here in the future, and looking forward to seeing the episode come out.
Noah, thanks so much for sharing so many golden nuggets out there. I think it became very clear for our listeners that if you really want to succeed on Amazon, and as I said, it's a beast, it's better that you have an expert on your side to make it work. And with the potential that Amazon has, and it will grow, it will continue to grow, you should be in good shape. And hopefully my Amazon guy can help you there. Where can people go and find you?
Yeah, you guys, anybody can go to myamazonguy.com, check us out. We also have a YouTube channel. We've posted over 2,500 videos on our YouTube. It's just My Amazon Guy. We have a ton of free resources on both YouTube and our website. And anybody who is interested can also go to our website and just request a free audit for their product. And we'll have usually a 24-hour turnaround time from that to actually getting that into your hands as well. It's full video audit going over the entirety of the product.
Okay, that's absolutely no-brainer. I will put all the links in the show notes, then you're just one click away. Noah, thanks so much for your time. Hope to talk to you soon and get more insights on Amazon. Thanks so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cos. Thanks.